Uh, I really like this angle. Uh, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this. Wish I could get some, just stick it up a little bit higher. I guess this will have to do because I don't have anything else to throw on top of there. So yeah, just like last Saturday, house full of people. No idea when or if they'll leave today, and I decided to come up here with the oh so dodgy internet of the lovely Starbucks and hope that things will go well. But I don't know because I've had internet over here go out before, so it wouldn't be too shocking if that happens. Um, so I've got this new video I was working on where I was just getting screenshots and some clips and whatnot. And I was thinking it would like I mentioned before the new approach for documentaries will be to like have a piece of it that I do in its entirety or pretty much its entirety. And then if I really like that part and like maybe do another piece and just kind of periodically put those up instead of having some big giant video in the back burner that just it just becomes gradually draining the more you put into it and think about how much time has passed. Um so I'm hoping I can finally put that out this week because I've got most of the information. I'll probably have to go and look at this New York Times article. I didn't want to subscribe to them because I just think paying for news is stupid. Like just as a principle, the idea that a news agency would say, "Hey, here's this thing that used to be that is publicly available from either other sources that you can look up for free or that should be available by virtue of it being information, but we're gonna put a paywall behind it." I think that's nuts. I don't know if that makes any sense, but they think it's hot to sit there and price gouge people with news articles. They're like, "You will pay for our stupid website." God, brighten this up a little bit. Okay. Um, when I got up here, there was a person that the way they were parked had me kind of nervous that I had basically they were parked in two spaces, and I thought that they were like doing something wrong. But I guess it was mostly just the size of their car. So now I'm kind of sort of parked in two places, and I hope that I don't have anyone try to like come up and say something. I don't think they will because I don't know. It feels like most people seem to not really like as long as there's other spaces available for people to use. I don't think they'll say anything. But you never know. 'Cause we know that some people are very antagonistic and they'll take any opportunity they can to be like, you're parked the wrong way, you know, that kind of stuff. No, I was supposed to talk to my friend who called me. I think it was on Tuesday night, like at 11 something. And the problem with him calling me at that time is that people are trying to sleep. So I left out of the. I went in my car to talk to him. We spoke for like half an hour, and then he said he would call me back because I was gonna stay up until like 2 or 3 anyway, so it wouldn't matter. No call back that day or the day after that, or the day after that. So I call him on Friday, and then at like 1 in the morning on Saturday, or I guess today rather, I should say, one in the morning today, calls me and is like, "Oh, my bad." And I'm not next to my phone, so I don't. By the time I see it, it's been like 40 minutes. So I just decided I would, because the problem is if I call him and I start talking to him, that's something that could go on for an hour, for 2 hours. Basically, I'll be asleep for this whole I would be asleep for like the whole morning, and I was trying to stick very hard to my like scheduled time of like 10 my time or 10 in the morning. Um, which I still didn't end up doing because I was asleep at 10. So it's like I think it's funny that like you missed out on some with him, so you could make sure you were here at this particular time to stream, and then you still missed out on the actual streaming time that you wanted. Like you basically didn't get either option, which I think is really comedic on a level of on an ironic level, self-deprecating wise, I guess I could say. Yeah, sometimes I get up in the morning, I think I'm sick because I just have like a thing with my sinuses or whatever, and then you find out it's not the case. You know, one of the other problems with this particular location is because of the spot I usually get, which is this one. There will be people who will drive up on the side, or they'll and because they have a drive through and it's like right behind the parking lot, which means that if you park on this particular side, you'll just be boxed in until the line hopefully gets shorter or until people go up. Because sometimes people go up and another car gets in. So I don't really know anymore like what the deal is. Yeah, it's I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of hassle just to stream now. Not on Monday, because on Monday I usually have the place alone. That stream last Monday was again because it was a rare circumstance where people were there. Um, thanks to that goofy holiday, but I we should be good next Monday. I don't know for sure because you know they spring stuff on you. This person announces they're not working today, which seems to be a pattern. I always think it's funny where like the people who work a job for like a dozen years or even longer, they're very like I noticed a lot of them are very comfortable being like, all right, I'm not working today, whatever. But then if you start working some job and let's say they tell you to come in Monday through Friday, you come in Monday through Friday, and then after you come in Monday through Friday and like are always there and never take a day off, they're just like, sorry, it's not gonna work out. Goodbye. Seriously, I've seen some people who work these different jobs. They'll take whole weeks off, and I'm just like, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just used to like not being valued by companies to where the idea of even taking a day off sounds crazy to me. Like everything I have to do, I just do on the weekend. I'm sure there'll be, eventually there will be some reason to do it, but it's just like when you see how comfortable people are with just taking 2, 3 days off a week from work, it's I don't know, it's nuts to me. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't quite understand. Seriously, out of all the jobs I've ever had, I've never missed anytime they've said come in this day, that day, I've always shown up. I haven't had one day off, except when you get fired or whatever. But like as an actual hired employee, you don't see me taking days off. Yeah, I was just captivated. I saw this woman. She had some very long hair. She had this or she has rather this tattoo on her leg, and it was kind of funny because the relative that we were describing who with their iconic line has a tattoo around the same place. So I was just reminded of that. And that guy wasn't lying when he said people will get those things anywhere. I've seen some who have it on the arm, again the leg. Um, I think it was my one of my teachers in high school had like tattoos around her. I think it was her shoulders, and she would wear stuff that showed it. Like that was always thought was so weird that how um we like people always talk about professional settings and stuff like that, but really, it feels like every time I go to a location, I see, even if it's somewhere you would think like an academic place such as a school, right? You still had a teacher that had tattoos that showed them off, um, and a nose ring, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not against, I don't think they should be barred from having that stuff, especially tattoos, because once you get them, it's hard to get them off years later. But if it were me and I had something like that, I would probably cover it up. Oh, I don't know. I just there's been like a continuous blurred line of like what is professional, because like we were talking about this before when you had the State of the Union, you had all of these people in suits and ties and gowns and just whatever formal stuff you can think of, and then while the president is speaking, they're making noises like this is a concert. It's and I don't know. I think it's the more you think about like how things are supposed to be versus how they actually are, it's more and more jarring. Like it stands out more. Like people say this is one way, but it's actually the other. Yeah, I went to the I think it was the market about a day or 2 days ago to pick up some stuff, and I actually saw this employee I've noticed a couple of times in there, who I described a few times before, looking this nice looking lady, and it's funny because I always just think about how like how done I am with that stuff. But I said before, I'll still go. I'll still see something I like. Um, I'm not compelled to say anything, but it's just I can't turn it off. I can't just go, well, this no longer is attractive to me. But I usually just you know people say something to you, say hello. Other than that, I just kind of stick to myself because there's just been too much garbage with them as a collective, and I'm not seeking to really be around a group of people who 99% of the time I'm going to get blamed for what they do. So it's just one of those things where I know why I keep my distance. Um, it had to die. Like that whole thing of that they needed to be done. I even said the same thing about that relative. I said I'm not going to sit here for another year and be the whipping boy for two people who've never helped me get a job. While they try to like insult or imply bad things about me for being unemployed. Like I'm done with that. Like I said before, that you can have someone who pays bills and it still is a toxic, unstable environment. When you have people who get so mad to where they're threatening to kick out another person because they didn't do exactly what they wanted in one instance, that's ridiculous. And it's unstable. And I know it's not normal because I've lived with other people before who have not done this. So it's just them trying to have a power trip, as I described previously. And unfortunately, with the spin artists enabling their BS, you really don't have anybody in your corner that can actually do something over there. But like I said, I dropped communications with them, so it doesn't bother me too much. Oh, oh my God! It's a Kotsky merchant. He decided to make an appearance. We haven't seen him in such a long time. I think you were like the only major person that didn't show up on that. What stream was that? I think it was the hype one where it was like all these different people that I literally hadn't seen in some cases in months or a year. I was like, what? Where in the world have they been? So you might have been like the only major one that didn't appear. I think you did, and I'll probably have to go check it out again. That was the reunion stream. All these people you haven't seen in how long? No, I was shocked. I said, "Whoa, this was more epic than the Friends reunion." I have this one relative who really does not like that show. To where they like every time it comes on, they turn the channel and just it's just kind of funny just because of how like much they stress their animosity toward a very popular, I would say largely inoffensive show. I mean, you don't really have people online having heated debates about that show. I don't know. I'm just thinking about them. Just like it comes on, and click it off. Oh man. Yeah, I got up. I said I'm gonna do my stream, and I came over here. Not gonna wait around all day for people to slip out or go somewhere else for once. No. And look, I'll freely admit I'm not really as comfortable here as I would be, home. But it's still I'd rather do it this way just because there's still a chance of no interruptions, and there's also a lesser chance of like, I'd say the internet here compared to the places like they're about even. So it's one of those. It's just a trade off. Like it's not as comfortable, but it's still something I'll do if it means you'd be surprised at what people debate online, especially on YouTube. Well, I tell you, I used to be on the Consenshu forums where they talk about like here I am, a guy who cares about a good story, whether characters were used well or not, themes, etc. And they're talking about narrators and the original Japanese audio and um I mean, and you also have some of those power scalar people and I'm just like, God, man, everything I like, you guys couldn't care less about. Everything you care about, I couldn't care less about. Like, you have people on there who are still complaining about the original, what was it, 1999 Funimation dub. I'm like, dude, this dub not only is over 20 years old, so anything you could have said about it should be finished at this point, but also you've had multiple redubbings both by Funimation and from other studios. So I just don't get what more they want. But yeah, they talk about that was one of the biggest reasons I left that site. They got too hyper focused on stuff I don't care about, and they were saying all of this weird ridiculous crap. Like who? Oh, I didn't like this person as the narrator. It's like, well, I mean, the narrator's in the episode for what, 30 seconds, a minute? Not even 10% of the overall product, and you're going to sit here and complain about that? Really? That's a legitimate thing to harp on? Yeah, that forum became a real chore to be on after a while. So a lot of the stuff I was interested in, they weren't, and they just people. I noticed they get caught up on a lot of stuff doesn't matter to me. It's just too irritating. We're getting the next chapter of Super tomorrow, right, or the day after that? I know it's supposed to be like the Monday usually, so I look forward to reading that. Like I said, last few chapters have actually been a breath of fresh air, something different. Um, I mean, I haven't bought the super manga in literally in I think in years. But if we get four good, unique, non-centered around the same two stupid Saiyans chapters back to back, I'll pick up that volume. I won't even get the rest of the series. I'll just pick up that one volume. All right, that was the one. That was one of the few times they actually kept me entertained for 4 months. Just a bunch of myopic weirdos who look for any reason to whine and moan. I guess what drives me crazy, right, is that if you have a show that's in that's widely available in America, both in English and in Japanese, and it's available in English in several different versions actually, and you choose to not only complain about the English version that you don't like year after year after year after year, when you have a Japanese version that you say is so much better, is so much greater, etc., etc., it kind of feels like you're choosing. I don't even want to say to be negative, but you're choosing to punish yourself. I guess is the way to describe it. Because it's not like the English version is the only one you have access to. Maybe it was at one point, but that era is long gone thanks to the internet and these different box sets and whatnot that come with different versions of audio. Dude, my favorite part is when they try to convince people to watch the subbed version, and I always say the same thing. I have nothing but respect for the Japanese. I like a lot of the stuff that comes out of Japan. Um, I know some voice actors because they've been in multiple things. They're hard workers. There are some artists that work very hard as well. Um, both animators and actual mangakas. But I have no desire to watch anything in a language I do not speak. I just don't. When I watch something, I like to be able to understand what people are saying. And I'm not going to learn Japanese just to watch the version of the show in a way that you describe as better. So people can get mad, they can get upset. I don't care. I don't like watching stuff in other languages because I don't understand what they're saying. Even with subtitles, I just don't like having to read while I'm watching something. It plays a seminal part in taking me out of the experience. Now, I'll gladly read a translated manga, where they take the bubbles and replace them with English words. But as far as like sitting here and you know, I don't even imitate any Japanese words, but just like trying to read, I'm not interested in doing that. So people can get mad and angry. It's just how I feel, and I feel that way about any language that I don't speak. Spanish, not as much because I took a little bit of I took Spanish 1, 2, and 3 in high school, so I know some of it. Not I'm not going to call myself proficient speaker. The anime fandom has become much worse than what I remember. Well, that's why I largely don't associate with. I don't know. It feels like the more I'm into something, the less desire I have to really be around the other people who like it. It's like this new phenomenon I've noticed where because sometimes you have people who they haven't watched they don't watch their own stuff, or they try to like because this is a thing as well. They'll get mad at you if you like something they don't. Um, or the stuff that they claim to be a fan of, they'll be trashing and talking, speaking poorly of. So a lot of times, if I'm a fan of something, you can count me to probably not talk to people who like it as well. Or if I do, it's like a very limited, small number of people. because like I said, I just don't really enjoy those types of discussions. Like they're not really fruitful for me. No one cares about story or character development anymore. It's all fights and power scaling. I mean, I remember when I was doing my I was on, I think it was Reddit. I don't post anything on there, but somebody made a thread where they were like, "Hey, isn't it crazy that 18 is the third or fourth strongest fighter on Earth when the Boo saga starts, but then she doesn't do anything other than just sit around and get, killed off screen?" And this person in the comment section is like, "Well, only the Saiyans were able to stand up to Boo, and she simply was not strong." And I'm just sitting there like, you know, whenever you have a series where people convince themselves of something that's actually not true, then you're already limited in terms of what your fans are even capable of grasping. Now, we discussed this before. Toriyama is basically the god of Dragon Ball, at least when the original manga was being produced. Anything he said was true, it would be true. If he came out and made a chapter where suddenly um the androids can have their own super form, then they would have their own transformation as well. So for me, I just need a better explanation for her lack of a fighting role in that, or just lack of a role in that arc in general, than just, oh, she wasn't strong enough. I need more meat to that than just, somebody doing their little power scaling explanations. Hey, Akatsuki merchant, I hope you understand why I'll always think it's a paradox that when that arc starts, and this is a fact because the story explains this, she is at least the fourth strongest out of the Z fighters. Only ones that are stronger are Gohan, Piccolo, and Vegeta. And even Gohan is debatable because of how much time he spent not training. Um, and then in that arc where she is one of the top four strongest people when it starts, she has no fights with any. It could be either a sub boss or any major antagonist whatsoever, and just gets killed off screen. What a waste, man. People were like, "Oh, Toriyama doesn't like women." It's like I see why they say that. I mean, here is the literal strongest woman on earth who's actually stronger than basically the entire cast and still does nothing. So it's not too far a stretch to believe. That will never make any sense to me. I don't know. I just there's a lot of stuff that I don't get about these writers. Oh, just the decisions that they make and things like that. I don't know. A lot of writers are just, I guess, what's the way of putting it? It's really irritating when you make a character that sounds kind of like interesting, has some cool powers, whatever, and then you just do nothing with them. Like as a reader or a fan, that always annoys me. It's like, hey, nice concept, poor execution. Let me see here. Toriyama knows his fans will get riled up if anyone other than Goku gets a chance to shine. That's why Vegeta gets beat up all the time, despite being Goku's rival. Well, I told you that it's really bizarre to me to have a series with all these different characters and to just have this almost refusal to ever break away focus from the same two over and over again. I remember there was a guy I talked to about this, and he was like, "Oh, well, Goku and Vegeta sell the most merchandise." I'm like, you really want me to believe that if they let Piccolo beat it doesn't have to be like a main villain, but if they let him defeat someone in some one chapter, two chapter fight, all these people are now suddenly going to stop buying merch. Are you really trying to convince, like, who? That's why I said that, like, they have to really convince themselves of this Twilight Zone esque scenario where there's going to be this mass hysteria if anyone besides those two gets focused on. And we know that's not true because look at Superhero. That film did reasonably well, and those two are only in the movie for totality for like what, two scenes. Damn, it's funny how like with the Broly movie, I'm like, all right, that was a fun one time viewing, but I don't think I'll watch it again. Then with Superhero, I'm like, oh, I want to see that again. When's it coming out on DVD? Superhero came out during the like last couple of chapters of the Granola arc, which I didn't read, but I read the plot summaries of, and that whole thing is just Goku and Vegeta and some guy who's the villain, but then not really, and this other person actually is, and then Frieza shows up at the end, and I just got tired of it. That's why I said and then they had their like 3 month break because it's yeah, the manga that comes out the manga that comes out once a month needs a 3 month break. That makes sense. But I was I've been fairly satisfied with the direction of the last couple of chapters. Like I said, Goten and Trunks are not, and when I say Trunks, I'm talking about present Trunks, are like probably the most boring personality-less characters in the whole cast. But I'll take anyone over more Goku and Vegeta. So I'm fine with what they're currently doing. Let's see. I think there's a delayed reaction on here where like where you write something that I don't see it for probably, I don't know, 20-30 minutes. Like I see it on there, but I have to, I just could look here because I'm more used to just glancing over. But it just frustrates me that no matter what, Goku fans always find a justification for why only Goku can save the day. Well, that's because his biggest fan is the one that's writing the story. I mean, you look at the end of the Buu saga where you have Gohan revived, right? Gohan is stronger than Goku. That's a fact at this point, at that point in the story. And because Toriyama wants Goku to be the one to destroy Buu, he won't have Goku use instant transmission to bring him over to the Kai planet to have him just take out Buu or beat him up. Um, they won't wish him over there. So pretty much they even though they can bring him over there and it makes sense for him to be the one to defeat Buu because he's the strongest at that point. Um, because Toriyama's like, Goku will defeat the final villain of the manga. They go with any reason to not include him, his son. People are. I don't know. I just get tired of the same old stuff. Someone's playing some music over here. It might be them doing that. I'm always worried about music because if it's audible, then I can get in trouble. That's why I won't roll the window down. Well, it depends what it is, but still, on YouTube you can get demonetized for anything, or even worse. Like Jesus. I was thinking of doing a separate video about the CEO stepping down because that did have me smiling from ear to ear. Just because it's like I don't understand the practice of let's prop up these bigger because we had this discussion on another stream I did where we were talking about how I watched this interview that I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Wojcicki, however you say it. I watched the interview she did, and she was talking about how in a desire to end the spread of misinformation, they prioritize channels from established ventures as opposed to ones from random people, some of that effect. So basically, um, I could do the same type of video on the news that CNN does, but CNN will get pushed up as well as ABC or one of these other places because they're an established organization. So whether my video is good and people thumb it up and leave comments, it doesn't matter. They're still going to prop up the actual news agency anyway, as opposed to myself, which really upsets me because it's like that's why I said you'll be stagnant on this site forever with their stupid algorithm. So I won't be sad to see her go, but I feel like it's probably going to be the same thing with Musk at Twitter, where you're not really going to see an actual policy change. It's just new face, same crap. They always like to use training as an excuse for why character is weak when it's shown training doesn't matter if it's all raw power. Because if training really mattered, go on to be the strongest fighter on earth. Yeah, him and Piccolo and Tien. Piccolo trains all the time. So I said I really like Superhero just for actually focusing on him because he's an interesting character both in terms of his personality and also his abilities. And I feel like a lot of Dragon Ball stuff that's set after Z really doesn't use him as well as it should. Um, so it felt like we had this conversation about you were saying you like GT more than Z. One of the reasons I don't like GT as much as just the original manga is because I don't like its treatment of Piccolo. I don't like that he's one shotted by Baby and then disappears for the rest of the arc to make this heroic sacrifice that only matters if you've seen Z because they didn't do anything with him in that show. Then he's basically a plot device for Goku to get out of what's the term they use, home for infinite losers, and then after that he just kind of disappears for the rest of the show until last episode. So really I just don't like the treatment of his character of Krillin. Really just anyone that returned from Z, I just the way they were treated in that show is a big part why I'm not a fan of it. I've seen other people complain, oh, they made Goku a kid again. I really couldn't care less about that, whatever. My problem with that show is basically the same problems I have with Super. Hyper focusing on one or two characters and leaving the rest of the cast in the dust. That's always going to be the same issue. Plaguing that literally is like the cancer killing Dragon Ball, where like everything they put out has to have this mandated focus on Goku to where they're never able to like deviate at all. Piccolo and Vegeta do nothing but train, yet they still get curb stomped by the villains because Toriyama doesn't want them taking the spotlight away from his special boy. I was going to tell you that the Moro arc was probably the most egregious example of that because in real life, we had 9 months of Vegeta training, like for these little panels they would show of him on Yardrat, and he comes from his training, he uses instant transmission. He It looks like he's gonna at least be a match for Moro. He gets the upper hand on him for less than a full chapter. Then he pulls this new form out of his you know what and just easily defeats him. And it's like, oh look, Vegeta mattered because his move helped them beat. It's like, yeah, but you convinced us he was gonna show up, wallop Moro, and then we got nothing other than some goofy group power, which isn't even about him. It's just about lifting up everybody. So yeah, that arc was just awful to me. It has a couple of highlights, but then again, every arc does, so that's really not even like a real point of praise. Well, yeah, that's why a lot of people have problems with Super Saiyan 3. It's a form that has no foreshadowing. It comes out of nowhere. It's gained entirely off screen. It makes the fight with Majin Vegeta look even dumber because it's like, why are you wasting your time fighting him with your supposed full power when you can just use three and wipe him out? All of it is just really goofy. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, three is just this extremely tacked on form that every time it gets used is basically a joke or not able to, actually win ever, except for what was that movie 13 Fusion Reborn? It gets I guess evenly matched or tied or whatever with Fat Boo. It can't do anything against Super Boo. It's getting toyed around with by Kid Boo. It gets curb stomped by Baby. So yeah, a lot of those. I just think it's funny that like that form, just by the time you get to the Super 17 stuff in GT, and even like the first two arcs of Super, it's just outdated. Like it literally exists to be the most useless form by virtue of never actually being able to beat the antagonist ever, no matter who uses it. Even when Gotenks uses it, it still can't beat Boo. So I think it's real funny. That's why I say it's all about raw power because the villains never have to train or get better. They're just given power because they're just a power hurdle for Goku to overcome. You know, I will say that's one of the reasons I really like Cell because when he shows up, he's obviously weaker than a good chunk of the cast, which is why he has to do his little stealth hiding thing. Um, and then by the time he gets to his second form, he can just curb stomp anyone that's not a Saiyan. But I don't know. I did like the approach of this villain who has to like rely on stealth and getting around because their actual strength isn't enough to just dominate everybody. Because really, if you think about it, you look at Vegeta and Nappa; they're able to beat everyone right when they show up. There's no power for them to gain. They're already as powerful as they are. And then Frieza, even in his first form, still no one's a match for him when he is introduced. And with Boo, no one could beat Fat Boo other than maybe like other than Goku and Gotenks. really they had no chance. I just think it's interesting that like Cell is the only one where there's this deviation where when he's introduced, he has to like hide and maneuver and you know be on the lookout and make sure they're nowhere near. I thought that was really interesting, and just in hindsight, it really cements why the Cell saga is my favorite part of Z, because he's just on a conceptual level. Cell is very different from the other major Dragon Ball antagonists. Like that arc does start that thing of having some villain who's not the main villain be the first one they fight. Um, but I don't know. It's like a lot of the stuff that kind of irked me about Cell is just magnified in Boo, and it makes me more and more irritated with Toriyama. But whatever. But no, I will say that out of any of the villains, Cell probably qualifies the most for having the trainer get better, because if he didn't have his forms, there's multiple characters that can wipe him out. I mean, first form can be dusted by Piccolo and the Saiyans. Um, the second one can, Vegeta and Trunks both could have defeated him if he wasn't like being teamed up with. Uh, and then final form is, some people even debate that Goku, if he had just not given him the sensu bean and kept fighting, could have won. I don't know. I don't know about that, but it's. I just think like to me, he always felt like he was the most vulnerable, even at his strongest. Like as far as the one that you saw, doing the most to try and get more stronger. Oh, the sun's coming out. It's crazy how the weather just changes so drastically here. Like it can be sunny, like really bright and sunny, and then sometimes it'll be like I mean, in the course of this stream, it goes from cloudy to sunny. I always found that just fascinating about weather, just how in such a short amount of time, 40 minutes, it just changes so drastically. There's always something interesting about that angle of like just seeing things morph and turn different and whatnot. I just wish Toriyama would just use other characters and let them actually win for once. I'm tired of them just being fodder for Goku. Well, I mostly blame Toyotaro, because as a writer, he chooses to not have his cast in. Excuse me. As the person who draws the manga and who is in direct consultation with Toriyama, he easily can push back and say, "Hey, for this arc, I want this person to do this. For that arc, I want that person." It just seems like Toriyama, yeah, comes up with stuff for Super, but he just does outlines. So if you want to like get upset at somebody for the lack of focus, who actually can make a difference, get mad at Toyotaro. He's totally fine with this. Yeah, he chooses to allow his sensei to only use the same two characters over and over. Like I remember, it was Toriyama that decided to have Frieza come back for the Tournament of Power, as opposed to just using Buu like they initially promised. And that just shows you they can make any type of change they want. I still think Cell in the tournament would have been really cool. Now, see if they actually if Super was a good series, they would have used the movie as a way because they have Cell in it, but it's not really Cell, the stupid kaiju version. They could have had Cell show up in that film with a new power up, whatever, and then that can be the gateway for them to use him again for some arc. But of course, because Super doesn't really plan things out, we're not going to see that. I already said before, the events of Super all are just things happening. They just occur. There's no organic storytelling. The only deviation from that is the tournaments and the future Trunks arc. But when it starts, it is just random stuff happening after another. And you could even argue the granola stuff is like out of no because I mean I tried explaining before the Bardock special is not canon to the manga. It's something that we only it's for the show. Um, God, the continuity of this stuff is all over the place. But I was just saying that you could like if you just read the manga and then started reading the granola stuff where they're talking about Bardock and the same, it would be very confusing because Bardock is a character who really only matters in like a few movies and some games, and that's about it. I'm still excited for that DLC for Kakarot, the one that's supposed to be retelling the Piccolo Junior arc. I wasn't gonna get any DLC for that game, but I'll get that one. God, we haven't had actual content for the original Dragon Ball series in how long? How many years? If they make that, I'm getting it. We saw some screenshots. I'm always just kind of wondering about like the mechanic of how strong your character has to be to even be in that tournament. Kakarot's a sad game because if they really wanted to, they could easily make a sequel that actually just follows. I'd rather they have it about the original Dragon Ball. I even said this before that Bandai would be way better off using the formula for Kakarot for a game for like for a series like Naruto because you don't have as many characters who get I guess I'll put it this way I feel like if you make a game like that and you can only play as like let's say team 7 people would be a lot more comfortable with the roster. They wouldn't be complaining. That's always the biggest problem with these anime games. They're always afraid to deviate from the script. That's their fatal flaw for me. Just like they can never go against the grain as far as because like I said, a lot of these series and a lot of these games are chances to do things that you wouldn't have seen in the official in the source material, So it's sad that they're just afraid. They're like, oh man, if we make a DLC where you can fight this person that never actually fought this person, fans will get angry. I'm like, fans aren't going to get angry about that. There's a lot of stuff fans will get mad over, but not some DLC. Like, well, actually, no, I take that back because I remember the one person that got mad at the super what was that at the Gods DLC for having Trunks be part future Trunks be part of that Super Saiyan God ritual. Oh man. Yeah, I think Kakarot's formula probably would work better for Naruto. As far as like the whole training thing and being able to like go to different villages and like the side quest, I think that would work really well with that series. I just think the roster hopefully wouldn't just be Team Seven. Like at least make Shikamaru playable, but I don't think they will. It's like it's funny. Anytime there's a fighting game, they try to make everybody playable, and every time there's like a attempt at a story game, they make as few people possible as playable. Like you might get five characters if you're lucky, and it's really sad. The rosters of these games, man, they just get worse and worse. You'll be sitting there and you're like, are you for real? We're in 2000 whatever 20 something 23, and this is the full extent of how many people we can play as. Seriously, really? That's it. That's the full section of characters that we can pick through. Yeah, the whole thing is just so sad to me. Just because fans they don't really seem to get too are like angry over actual ridiculous stuff. They don't really seem to be mad about, like, hey, instead of them just making another game that has all of this DLC in it, I'm going to let them have microtransactions. So you spend $60 on the base game, then another 50 on all the DLC. And I was trying to say that, like, the problem with Kakarot for me has always been it doesn't really have much replay value after you beat the main story. Like, oh, you get to resurrect these villains and fight them again. But then that's even a bad mechanic because you can't even fight the villains as whoever you want. You have to fight them as Goku or something. I'm like that. Any just the whole thing is goofy to me. I'll put it that way. It's goofy. It's stupid. It's dumb. I like how that game has a what do you call it, the bait what's the term for it, the strongest the cap level apparently is like 250 or 275 or something. Pretty much once you get into like the 60s and 70s, that's where the base game ends as far as the leveling is concerned. But for whatever reason, the base level, um the level cap is way higher than that for whatever reason. God, that game is just ugh. $60 is already a lot for. Yes. Oh, why not just have all that stuff being again to begin with, instead of forcing players spending extra money for content? Well, you know what it is. These companies, it's not even just Bandai, but these companies, these gaming companies, are used to putting out unfinished games because they know that people who like the base game to some extent, right, are going to wait for whatever crap they put out later and slurp it up and buy it. They know that as long as they put out a decent base game, people will go and eat up whatever garbage they have on the horizon for them. So you look at a game like Fighters, right? Crappy roster. It's some little tiny amount of characters. It's very few. Now, one of the things the fans love to say was they're trying to make all the characters different. Da, 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 da. But in actuality, they if they really wanted, like, they knew their roster was bad. They knew it was bad because within 2 years of that game coming out, you had twice as many characters, where it's like 40 something now. So they knew their roster was trash. But they also knew they want to put out an unfinished game, so they gave you an unfinished game with a trash roster, and now the unfinished game has a decent roster that you have to pay an extra what 100 and some dollars for. I think I gotta go back on the Steam website. It's like I think it's like $5.99 per character, and I didn't buy it because I don't play fighters that much. I think I uninstalled fighters. I didn't like not to be malicious, but just because I had other games I was trying to play. Because on Steam they had a whole bunch of Sonic games for sale, and I got those instead. Let's see what you're saying here. Um, no, I agree. $60 is already a lot for a game, and then when you factor in all that DLC, you're spent. We're talking about you are spending upwards of $200 for one game. If you buy the game at full price and the DLC at full price, you are spending roughly $200 for one game, and that's insane to me. But see, this is why I said that the DLC era of games needs to die. There needs to be something put in place to where you either put out a handful of DLC packs, maybe two, maybe three, or you just don't put the game out until that stuff is already included. Because this little like microtransaction BS, they're doing this with a lot of different series. It's just with Dragon Ball, it's more noticeable because all these games are coming from the same companies and they're all branded under the same stuff. So it's easier to like point out, hey, why are you guys doing this? Anything for some coins, man. And remember, it's $60 for a game you don't even technically own. I mean, you're basically being given an official ROM. You don't it's like you have a digital copy. So yeah, there's a lot of screwed up stuff here just with these games and the companies and what they expect you to do to play them. Yeah, Kakarot's another unfinished game that is getting a second life thanks to all this DLC. And we don't even need to talk about Xenoverse 2. We can just leave that one there. We don't even need to speak on that game. That's a game that's going to be around until the end of time because they just can't make a third one for some reason. We're going to get DLC number 29 in 3 years. I swear to you, I've played a lot of games. Not that many in like in this era of like a lot. I played some older stuff, whatever. But I played a lot of games, and I have never seen a single game with a dozen DLC packs besides Xenoverse 2. I have never seen that with any other game. Maybe you could argue Dead by Daylight is like that, but um I still would wager that's I wouldn't call that the same thing because that's not a sequel. That was just a one-off game that came out years ago that people still play and it still gets updated. It's just ridiculous. I'm not going to play a half. Well, the problem is they all seem to be that way now. I mean, I can't think of one game from any of these different series that's come out in the last 2, 3, 4 years that doesn't have a bunch of DLC packs. Look at Naruto. Look at Shinobi Striker. Look at how much DLC is on that game. Oh, you want to train with Madara? Have to buy him separately. You want to train with Tsunade and get her outfit? Have to buy her separately. Heck, they had Tamari as a DLC. God, man, like I'm tired of DLC. I'm sick of it. Like superhero is going to be represented with DLC for, I think it's the new Hero of Justice pack 2. I'll get that just because I like the forms for Gohan and Piccolo, but other than that, I'm not buying anymore. I'm tired of this. Make a new damn game. I'll buy that. Oh, Megumi says, well, at the very least, they're working on Xenoverse 3, though I feel they are real late due to the amount of DLC they milked the second game for. Megumi, you play games. I want to ask you, what game have you ever seen besides Xenoverse 2 that has over a dozen DLC packs? I'll wait. I'll pause this whole stream. You just think about it. We'll give you time to think. By the way, I was going to tell you I was playing, because I know you know this game. I was playing Sonic Adventure 2 for the first time in like 3 years, because I beat it for the first time during that whole like period where, I don't know if you remember, I was like at a motel or whatever. And there's like 4 levels in that game that I hate. There's the Rouge level where you have that 5 minutes to get the 3 I guess Chaos Emeralds, whatever. There's the Knuckles versus that stupid ghost boss. I always hated that thing because it has nothing to do with the story. It's just this random boss. There's the Shadow level where he's like, it's his last level where he's on that spinny crap. And then the one I hated the most out of any of them is the final one, the final level, where it's where you have to play as everybody except Shadow to get the gates open. That level is it that I had probably about 15 lives, and I died about 6 or 7 times on the Sonic part. Um, but it's funny because every part of that level is obnoxious to me except for Rouge. Like when you play as Tails, you have to land on this little like pillar thing, and you have to blast the door off, and you have to like be close enough when it's getting in, otherwise you're gonna fall to your death. Then when you play as Eggman, you have to shoot these the little freeze thing to keep, you know what I'm talking about, to keep a platform, because if you don't shoot at the right time, you're gonna fall and get hit and get like in that green vat of goo or acid or whatever. Then when you play as Knuckles, they have that, and I hated this so much. They have this little time limit, very, very tiny amount of time to go into that area where the door is, where the thing that opened the door is, and you're supposed to go in there, and that little must be, I swear it's not, it can't be any more than 10 seconds. You have to go in there and click the other one, or else you get swung all the way back out. And then with the Sonic one, you have to take out all the different enemies in each room for the door on the side to unlock. And they have this one, it's like I think they're the Chaos replicas or whatever. They're supposed to be related to the villain from the first game. And you have to hit that thing, then jump back, or else you're going to fall to your death. Then when you go into the other room, you have that thing again with 2 of those random robots, and that thing multiplies to like 20 or 30 versions of itself. Man, I was so happy when I beat that again. Like the biggest reason I don't play that game every year is that are those like 3 or 4 levels. That stuff was driving me crazy. I remember when I first played that Knuckles boss fight, I almost quit the game because it was just too irritating. That game comes to in mind really is probably some trendy games like Genshin Impact, Fortnite, and Minecraft. I know exactly what you're talking about. The last story mission have their own subsequent story missions. And then remember the boss, the I don't the bio lizard where it's like shooting out those death balls, and you have to jump and duck and jump and duck. It killed me. I lost all my rings on the last hit of taking that thing out, and I just gave up for the night. Maybe I'll try it again today, but that was too irritating. When I get like really close to beating a boss or a level and then I get killed, I just say forget it. That's more demoralizing than like dying at the start of it. No, that's the worst level in the whole game, in my opinion. Just as far as like, I have no desire to play through that thing again. Because a lot of it really is like these death traps. Like you go and you're supposed to land on this thing and shoot this stuff really fast or from a certain angle. It's just it's too rigid for me to really be a fan of. Like at least with a lot of the other levels, I understand if you don't land on something, you're dead. But when you have like insta death if you don't hit this thing at the exact moment or in the exact angle, that's a little too extreme for me. If I remember correctly, the only one of those that has a checkpoint is Eggman. So if you die on any of the other ones, you have to start all over again. That is funny. The only one that I had no problems with at all were Rouge. Like that was it. Like all you have to do is just go into that little area, click the thing, zip in there, turn the other thing, get out, hit the thing. It's like, man, I wish the other that's the breather section. Man, that was awful. I didn't even get to tell you, I got Frontiers, but my computer is lagging with it, so I can't even really play it unless I turn the video quality down to like 140p or something. So that's I'm not going to give you my opinion of that game because I can barely play it. I hated that game so much that I threw it in the garbage because I was mad at it. The game for sure punishes if you don't do it right. I do recall that being very irritating whenever you mess up, you start over by Eggman. There's just so many little like pitfalls and it's irritating because with Sonic's lock on system, when you hit those that little booth rip off chaos, whatever, when you hit the little clones of it that it spews out, um, when you if I guess there's like a thing where they can explode and that'll take away your rings. And if you're not by other rings and you're still locked onto them, they can just explode and then kill you right there. But it's not even really your fault because the game locks you onto them. Like it presumes you want to kill all these things before you try to move elsewhere. I'm trying to give a way to explain it. It's you lock on to them and then you can technically unlock, but when you lock onto them and they hit you and you lose all your rings, the game doesn't like pick up on you probably wanting to get your rings again. So that means that now you're at their mercy. And if they hit you one more time, you're dead. You better believe when I was playing through that final story again, I made sure to get all my extra lives. Yeah, that's the biggest problem with these platformers. If you want land in one area, oh, it's definitely better executed than a lot of what came after it. Like I said, aside from those 4 levels, I don't really have a problem with that game. Um, I've seen some people complain, "Oh, I don't like the Tails and Eggman parts or the Rouge and Knuckles parts." Like, I really didn't have that big of an issue with them. Really, I tend to die the most in the Sonic or Shadow levels because there's usually some they want me to run fast against or jump on, and then I fall off. So I saw most of those levels as breathers. Now, if you think Adventure 2 was poorly executed, go play Sonic 06. That game's like hold my beer. Homing attack is sort of like an all or nothing death trap in some situations. Man, I that last story is awful. Like I hate that thing so much. And it's awful because I recognize the same 3 parts where if you don't do something exactly the way they want you to, you're screwed. But yeah, really the difficulty of Sonic's part of that last story is just like the homing attack getting confused when all those enemies sprinkle together. Um and those little infrared, you know, I'm talking about where if you hit them, you lose rings because they're like bars of that are supposed to like keep you out of a room. You can jump over them, but it's hard to like do that when your homing attack is going to make you hit more of those enemies. There was this one artificial chaos enemy floating above a bottomless pit in one room for you to kill to unlock the door to progress. Oh, I hate those. Those are my least favorite enemies. Probably like out of the like henchman esque enemies in any of the games. Those might be the worst ones in the whole series because I can't find, especially if you're playing as like Tails or Eggman, I can't find any way to actually hit them without getting hit first. Because when you try to shoot them, they go into their little cocoon thing, and then by the time you're able to land a blast on them, they've already thrown their arm and got you. So maybe if you stand real, I don't know. They're my. Every time I see them, I just cringe. I'm like, oh, here we go. Gonna have to lose some life. If you don't have a specific power up to kill it reliably and just home attack it, you can easily die and fall to your death. Akatsuki Merchant says, "I hate games that are so rigid like that, forcing you to play they want you first, forcing you to play the way they want you to play and punishing you for trying to play any other way." Hey, my favorite part of I'm trying to remember what that reminded me of something. I'm trying to remember what it was. Um, man, let me think about it. I think I must have lost my train of thought. So now I'm gonna ban Akatsuki Merchant because he made me lose what I was thinking of. I'm gonna blame him. No, I was just saying that outside of those few levels, I like the game. I don't really like those parts at all. No, I'm Akatsuki Merchant. You wrote your last comment because now I'm gonna pull out my Infinity Gauntlet and make you disappear. So that was the end of him. We'll never see him on the stream again. This was his final appearance. Imagine if it's like an anime where they play the flashback montage of his greatest hits, and it's got some like woman's voice where she's like, uh, "Goodbye, Akatsuki Merchant," like just singing over it. These are his final moments. But yeah, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Frontiers because that was my computer, doing whatever. I'm irritated because I really did want to play that game, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna lose too much sleep over it. Well, at least the artificial chaos were more better coded in Shadow. Well, that's the thing. I didn't really have a problem with them when I would play as like a speed character or you know, Knuckles or Rouge. It's just when you use those mechs and you have to lock on to shoot them, it's like they know that you're going to shoot them, so they retreat back into their little cocoon. But I didn't have that much of a problem with them with the other types of the play styles. So I'm just saying, like, their coding in that game for the most part is fine, but with that specific type of character, then there's a problem. I'd want to get forced as soon eventually as well. Man, there's a whole like section of games I still haven't played, like Generations and Colors and Forces as well. It's like It's crazy thing. Like after Unleashed and Black Knight, I was just kind of sonicked out. Because what it was is that it started to seem like every game was just you can only play as Sonic. You can only play as Sonic, and I just got tired of it. So I was like, all right, whatever. I guess I'll just read the Archie comics. And those got canceled right after I got out of high school. I was like, okay, well, this is a mainly dead series. Then Forces came out, and everybody was so excited with the when the trailer had Shadow and Chaos and um, who else was there? But it had like the two of them, and people were like, "Oh, they're gonna have a big role in the story," and then it's just some clones. Yeah, I was surprised you would even be excited to play that because I heard nothing but bad things about that game. That it was like this really lifeless husk of a bunch of running stages that aren't really that inventive. They just feel very pretty empty. Well, my brother played Forces. He didn't like it. It's pretty much what's the way of describing it? The speed stages as a concept are just whatever, but as far as like being inventive and doing something that really has you engaged, it's just whatever. Like at its best, it's okay. At its worst, it basically it's not as bad as 2006, but it still wouldn't be anywhere close to being called good. To where you'd like want to replay, be like, oh man, I remember this game. Because Adventure 2 is a game I'll probably always come back to in a few because there I do like most of the game and the Chow Garden and the racing and all the rest of the little stuff in there. Same thing with the first adventure, but like I can I don't ever see myself playing Forces again. I'm about to say Frontiers. I don't see myself playing Frontiers because my PC was acting up. Maybe I'll get to play it when I get another computer in 2025 or something. After they've pumped out 7 DLC packs. Forces was just bland and tedious at the same time. I like how they made this big deal out of you being able to play as Shadow, and then you could only play as him and go in reverse of Sonic's levels. Like what? Then like all this whole thing, episode Shadow. It's like no, it's just a reskin and flipping the levels upside down. That's all it was. God, man, it's weird to have a game that has like at least with Unleashed, there's barely any Sonic characters in that game. It's just Tails and Amy. But it's weird to me to like have a game where damn near the whole modern cast is in it, and you can only play as Sonic. And I guess after the game is over, Shadow. Like I just think that's weird. Like they're all there, but you can't play as them. I actually enjoyed Colors. I did like the inclusion of Wisp. Story was very bad. I'll admit that. Well, the most important thing of a game should be the gameplay. Um, I mean, you look at a lot of the older games, they don't really have these concrete, amazing, dynamic stories. It's usually go rescue the princess, go stop this evil person that's very smart. But as long as the game was fun, who really cared, you know? Um, so it's one of those. I mean, like for example, I think the story in Shadow is bad mainly just because I don't like the fact that you have him not remember anything. So now people can just make up whatever they want and there's all these different pathways and you have to play the same levels over and over to get to them. But that's mainly again because it's connected to a style of gameplay I don't like, which is forcing someone to play through levels that I didn't think were that fun anyway, over and over again to get these alternate scenarios. No, on Forces, yeah, you can buy Shadow for that DLC, but all his levels are just Sonic's upside down or backwards or whatever. Well, yeah, Scott, that level was fun because you could actually, again, I haven't played the game in some years, but I remember distinctively for that level, there was no cars. They had some, like, I think some goofy guns, but those are like optional. So I was fine with just playing through that level and going around, and it was actually inventive, and it that level looks better than probably anything in in Forces because it's actually unique looking. It's distinct. It has, how to explain this. Um, it's not just run here, jump this. It has an actual design that's appealing and has some kind of forward momentum and is unique. It's not just the same old crap of reskinning Green Hill Zone. Like it's distinct in its own way. I'll put it that way. I was seriously anticipating playing as Knuckles, Tails, Amy Chaos, etc. And all I got was Sonic reskins in the same levels recycled and turned upside down. Like, what the hell am I playing? I already told you we're never gonna get a decent. I don't know. It just feels like every modern Sonic game is the same thing. Like, here's a new style of playing that some people are gonna like or hate. You can only play a Sonic, and then maybe if you're lucky, one other person, and because people thought that was like a big issue playing as other characters for some reason. Um, and then this game will get some mixed reviews, and then we'll start all over with something else. So I just don't really have that much confidence in Sega. Like, people are saying, "Oh, Frontiers has a really good play style, and they should keep this." Like, yeah, but they said the same thing after Unleashed. They said just get rid of the night stages and just have him running, and then the game will be, the next game will be great. And then they did that with Generations, and then went to something else with Forces. So it just seems like every time they come up with something, they change it or it gets flipped around or whatever, and you can't really ever get used to a style of playing because it just keeps deviating and switching up on you. Because, like I said, Sega is the equivalent of throwing darts at a wall and trying to see what sticks. They don't know what to do, and they haven't known what to do for a while. They're having this like midlife crisis with their identity, where every game plays different than the other one, or what I'm talking about. Just there's nothing to expect. I tell you, I'll never get over the garbage that was Sonic 4. Like, everybody was so excited for that, and it looks like something off a phone game. Oh my god! I was like, they really hyped people up. Project Needle Nose or Needle Mouse or whatever, and then you click it, and you watch the trailer, and it looks so cool. Oh my god, he's running, and then it's just it's crap. Like, in my opinion, Sonic 4 is Sonic Advance. If you want a game that's like somewhat close to the style of the original trilogy on the Genesis, I would just go with Sonic Advance. Advance is 4, Advance 2 is 5, Advance 3 is 6. Other than that, I'm not about to be tricked by Sega. I did like Sky Troops myself, just dynamics and scenery's a breath of fresh air. Even the flying section was nice change of pace than the same running and platforming. Yeah, they did something different. That's why I said the Shadow game is so frustrating, because I feel like if they just made a game of him that it was just entirely like the speed stages from Adventure 2, um, like no stupid mission objectives, just the speed stages. I think that would have done a lot better with critics than what we ended up getting. And I know what they were saying. Oh, well, it's just going to be a Sonic game with Shadow. It's like, okay, but that's kind of his thing. He's the darker, edgier Sonic. So just make a game where you can just play as him. You know, maybe if you want to implement chaos control, you can figure out a way to do that, whatever. But you know, you don't. I don't know. It's so frustrating because there was just so much potential, and I just think they squandered it. LOL, they only want Sonic to be playable because the game is about him. His name is in the title. Like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. How could I have forgotten that Sonic was the main character? That was funny when one person I saw did a video. They were analyzing the plot of Sonic '06, and they said that if you actually think about it, the main character of that game is the princess, and then maybe Silver and Shadow. Like Sonic is just there to save her, and then get killed at the end. Like his story is literally only impactful on the overall plot of the game because the princess features heavily in it. I just thought that was interesting. That like his name is in the title. You play as him for a good portion of it, but he's not the actual focal point of the plot. I mean, like, look, I get when Unleashed came out. That was 2 years after 2006. You know, and that game followed a string of games you could play as different people. I get where there would be fatigue at some point, but it's like now we've been in this same era of only playing as Sonic pretty much for like 12, 13, 14 years. I'm tired of it. I don't know if I should play Sonic '06 whenever I try to light dash a trail of rings. Sonic glitches in midair and falls to his death. Yeah, I'm that's one of only maybe two games that I never want to play again. Just I really do not like it at all. Um, I'm sure if I stuck my guns and fought through it, I could probably beat it. But I just I don't feel like it. I really don't. Just like I was wanting to get Unleashed and play that again, but the problem with getting Unleashed and playing on a computer is that it has a lot of those quick time events and they're configured for an Xbox controller. So like it'll say Y X B, and then on my keyboard that's like I L. You know, like I don't know what the keys are. So if I end up dying and not doing the quick time event on time, it's kind of like I'm being set up to fail because I don't know what the buttons are. So yeah, that Unleashed is a game I want to play again, but I just have to find some way to get the keys to be configured to what the quick time event is. Because these keys do take some time to get you, and usually it's not that bad because in most instances I can click one button and jump, and then you know, like it's how to explain it when you're just like if I downloaded um the original game, for example, and I start on Green Hill Zone, I know this button is jump. I know to go forward. You know, it's really not that complicated when you're just starting out. But when you're talking about playing a game with quick time events where they want you to know this button, that button, this button, that stuff can mess you up. Because I was playing Ultimate Alliance about a month ago, and I had this boss where they want me to jump on them and click this button. I don't know what the buttons are because the keyboard's different. So I have to like screenshot the keyboard, then pause the game or save stated, or it just becomes a hassle, you know. Remembering that stuff is not easy. It really is not. Almost makes me want to actually buy a controller to to you know have like actually use the buttons on there for. I would rather not, but if I have to, I'll do it. Unleashed was probably my favorite because there was an element of strategy to competing zones. Yeah, I have good memories of Unleashed. Like, I haven't played it since it came out, but I remember having fun with it. I never had as much of a problem with the Werehog stage as other people did. Um, but you know, I guess I haven't had as much of a problem with anything as other people have. So I remember I was playing. I used to have what was that game? Black Knight on the Wii, and I got all the way to the final boss, the one that you're like chasing on that horse, and I just couldn't beat it, and it was driving me crazy because of how close I was to, you know, finishing the game. I was like, oh my god. Because remember correctly, I think if you would beat the game, you could play as Shadow and Knuckles and the rest of them. So it really was unfortunate that it was that way. I'm sure it can be difficult playing these games on a keyboard. I am just much accustomed to playing on a console. I'm aware not everyone has a console in the game around to access. Well, you know what the problem is, right? I have to get the console, I have to hook it up, and places I live, since I don't live by myself, they tend to have people mess with stuff. So having it on a computer is a place where I know that no one's gonna like unplug something or lose the control. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot safer for it to be there than on a console, in my opinion, anyway. Now, if it's something like what do you call it? I don't know. I just hate that like games are sometimes it's hard to play this stuff because they don't really make it accessible or they want you to get some other device. And I don't have the money to just go and get this and get that. As I said before, it's interesting that games are kind of like a paradox. Well, how do I put it? They're kind of like the equivalent of movies in the sense that if you were to go and buy every single game that you were like remotely curious about playing, you would lose a whole bunch of money and then you play online for free instead. And then with movies, people will watch ones for free that they're curious about seeing, and then in my case, get it afterward, buy it. Um, but it's kind of one of those things where if you experience it for free, it's because you don't want to end up buying something that you may regret or not, like as much as you thought you would. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for saying. I'm just saying that like the affordability of this stuff is the other part of it. And Adventure One, my favorite level is the casino where you need to get the 400 rings, and I was like, what? Because that's 4 lives. They're basically telling you you need to like gift yourself to beat this level, and you go in that room and they just shake all the rings out. Oh, that was so cartoony. That really felt like something out of Looney Tunes, where you just get all the rings just shaked out of you. They just fill up the whole room. No, my earliest one of my earliest memories of playing a game was when my I think it was my dad took me to this it was some game, so I must have been about maybe 2 or 3. I'm gonna say 3 or 4. And I think it might have been there was how like some stores will have like a game you can just play. I'll never forget they had adventure on it was some kind of, maybe it was a Dreamcast. I don't know what it was. But anyways, it was like an arcade-esque thing where you have like your controller on the board or whatever. And I always remember going to that title screen and you could, I think it was set up to where you could only pick Sonic. Yeah, because I remember you unlock the other characters later on. and the first thing you do is fight chaos. And I remember just running around in a circle because I didn't know what to do to beat him. Heavily agree with you, especially since we all know typically with older games the prices are outrageous. We also know that many people who attempt to sell these games to sell these price gouge you. Yeah, like for example, I used to have Rage and Blast 2. I don't think I have it anymore because I left it somewhere. Basically, I might still it might still be somewhere I can access. I don't know if I have it anymore. But I went on eBay one day and I saw people putting this a game that was, if I remember correctly, $60 when it came out. They're selling this thing for like 100 and something, 200, and I'm like, what for a game that came out 12, 13 years ago? You're trying to jip people out of their money for that thing? You could buy Iggs Universe and all the damn DLC in the world for that price. Like, damn. No, I was so confused. I didn't know what to do. I was just running in a circle. I remember this one guy was like, I hate that Adventure 2 put Tails in that mech suit. I'm like, well, from what I've been told, apparently when that game was first in development, they were only going to have Sonic, Eggman, and Knuckles playable. Um, which actually makes a lot of sense because if you look at the finished game, Shadow only has 4 levels. So I don't dispute that was a thing that probably happened where like late in development they're like, all right, we need to pad this out a little bit more. So let's get another character that is like Sonic and one that is in a mech suit like Eggman and one that can fly like Knuckles. Not fly, glide rather. So I don't dispute that at all. In fact, one of the other things I heard was that originally when that game was in development, they were going to have Amy and Chaos playable in the main story because Amy's in more cutscenes than Knuckles is, even though he's playable and she isn't. And then Chaos being there could explain how Shadow knows how to use the Chaos control, since nobody is shown to have taught him that. And they both have finished models that you can use if you play the multiplayer. So I don't dispute that at all. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff I just think is interesting, like playing Knuckles Chaotix, and then you're like, oh, originally Sonic was supposed to be in this game, but because of whatever reason, they just took his play style and made a new character called Mighty who kind of looks like him except not really. Uh, I still think it's funny that Silver first appeared in 2006, but because that game retconned itself out of existence, his first interaction with the rest of the cast is in Rivals. It's like your first appearance was originally on this console game that is considered one of the worst games ever made by some people, and now your first appearance is on this obscure like handheld that barely anybody even talks about anymore. Damn, it doesn't get any more obscure than Sonic Rivals. That game is the ultimate level of like, oh yeah, that was a thing. I forgot. It's that game, and what's the one on the DS Chronicles? Pretty much any handheld game that's not advanced or rush has been forgotten about. Let me see. Sonic Riders is another one too. With Riders, I think that's mainly because that last game, what was it, Zero Gravity? You know the one on Connect? That thing was awful, man. Everybody I knew that reviewed games said it was trash. But no, I had Riders as a kid. I got stuck on the story mode and never got to unlock most of the characters. But that's a game I would be up for revisiting. Yeah, if I remember correctly, the first one is considered the best out of the three. I don't know for sure. I know it's people like it a lot more than that third one. But yeah, Riders 3, that Connect one was just. You asked me would I rather play Sonic 2006 or Riders. Or Riders for Connect. I probably would pick '06. At least that game I don't have to get up and make these weird gestures and any of that other stuff. Well, yeah, but when Chronicles came out, I was excited. I got it, I think, on the first day of release. I mean, like anytime they deviate from the script and they do something different, I'm excited for it. Because in Chronicles, you could play as pretty much all the important characters that have been like I'm talking like the ones that were in Sonic X, for example. Like pretty much everyone that's other than maybe Team Chaotix, um, you could like give them their own moves. It's a game I definitely would want to revisit at some point. But just the appeal of that game to me was that it was something different. So yeah, a Sonic RPG. I never thought I'd see it, but they made one. You could have whatever characters you wanted in your party. Um, I know for a time you're limited to have you're forced to have Sonic in there, but eventually you can phase them out if you want. So that game, and what's the other one? Sonic Battle on the Advance, which actually ties into Advance 3 because the robot from that game is rebuilt by Eggman and Evil, or he makes like a copy of him. But yeah, Chronicles was I'm interested in going back to that game just because of how different it was, and a Sonic RPG where you could basically play as every major character. So that's a game I definitely have a desire to check out again. Yeah, that stuff is like I say, anytime they make some that's a little bit different or tries to mix things up, I'll be intrigued to see what it was, even if it didn't work all the way. RPG is my main favorite genre. It certainly appealed to me. Although when I first played at the time, I didn't really understand how to play it. Yeah, there's parts of it that I don't get, like the mechanic of when you run, you have to like dodge these crates and enemies that can catch up to you. Um, but I do think if I came back to it now, I'd probably do better, beat it. I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about it. I have to experience it again. But I'm just saying that game stood out to me just because it wasn't the same old crap. It wasn't just run here, jump over that. It tried to be different. Like one of the things I really like about Adventure 2 are the upgrades you can make to your character and how for the most part they're optional. You have some that you do need, like the for the mechs being able to like float on stuff and use the little glider thing. Um, but even something like that makes the game very unique. So it's one of those things where it might sound like the same old stuff in a lot of ways, but a lot of games do have their own little charms and appeals to me. Just like I was replaying Heroes recently. You want to talk about nostalgia? That was the first 3D Sonic game I ever owned. Like the only games I might have had before that one was probably like Advance 3. Um, so that game's the ultimate nostalgia, even more than any of the other games probably in the whole series, besides again the one I just mentioned. And I was playing through Sonic's story, or the Team Sonic story, and I got all the way to that Boo Castle place, and I was like, man, now I have to. You got the Egg Fortress, then you have to play through this same story with 3 different teams of varying levels of difficulty. I am not excited for that, especially with the Chaotix. Their story was, from what I remember, the worst. They have one level where you have to kill 80 enemies. It's just ugh. Oh, hello, Gem. So, Gem, instead of the Supreme Court one that I told you about, I'm gonna do one um on North Korea. Okay, so that'll be the like little thing I was talking about, little documentary I was talking about. I've been busy with family. I know you got married for the 3rd time. I'm just telling you that I'll probably put that thing out either. Um, I've got most of the script. I have to edit it. Let me see. What did Megumi write? Megumi says, "I remember. Gosh, that was so irritating." No, there was this one guy that did a review of Heroes, and he made a point of showing that he put in some kind of code to avoid, like, to just have it say complete 100% for Chaotix. Like, that's how much he didn't want to replay their story, to where he played through all the other campaigns but not theirs. And he quit really early on. He got to, like, I think the second zone and was like, no, I'm not doing this. Oh, we don't refer to people by nicknames here. You have to call them by their full screen name or not at all. I mean, I don't know who you think you are to even be speaking in this way to such an esteemed recurring character. You have to always say the full username. You have to say hello Megumi 800 or 0800. You have to make sure you put all the numbers in there, because you might slip up and say Megumi 0799, and then that Megumi's like, yeah, what do you want? It could be a totally different character. No, Jim, what I think I'll probably do if I make another, because I do want to make at least one full scale documentary this year. What I'll do is I'll probably work on it in pieces for certain like positions, right? And then put it out, like put pieces out just as it, gets completed or whatever. And then when the whole thing is done, then I'll make the full version available. I hope that sounds appealing. I don't know if it does. It's a way of me just taking the load off myself, because I feel like if I sit there and I write 100-page script and then I'm like, oh, now I have to edit all of this, it just feels like it's this daunting task. But when you have parts of it done, it makes it a lot less, grueling. Hey, you won't be getting any complaints from me. They had one of the most obnoxious story objectives. They tried to do something different, but I felt they botched it. Yeah, well, you know what it is? It's like they had to give them a gimmick, because every other team has a gimmick. Team Sonic is medium, Rose is easy, Dark is hard. Um, and with them, they just were like, okay, well, we've got the 3 difficulty objectives completed. I doubt people want to play through very hard mode, so let's do this thing that, depending on how much of a completionist you are, um, you'll do it anyway. And like that, their stuff was always the worst part of that game, man. People were saying the big levels in Adventure were the worst. I would rather play those than the Chaotix campaign. I'll take him any day of the week over them. That's why I said like having multiple playable characters isn't even a problem. It's just when they try to like give them all different play styles and sometimes it doesn't work. Like being different isn't always better, because we had that same conversation about fighters where you've got this game with a roster of like 40 characters, but people only want to play as the same 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 because the rest of them are considered to not be as good as the ones that people actually use over and over again. Which begs the question, what's the point of having a roster where characters play differently if their differences just make it to where people don't want to play as most of the characters available to them? They play differently. They play differently. Yeah, and now no one wants to play as most of them because they don't like the way they play. Good job. People don't think when they say stuff. They're just like, whatever. I don't know. It feels like people become fans of things and they never want to acknowledge any fault in it whatsoever. So they just kind of write off every single critique as, not being legitimate. It's one of those things where it's just the whole sycophant nature of stuff. Look at Jem saying, okay. Let me see. I guess the real question is, what would be the solution to that problem? I don't even know. Jem says, I totally understand. Well, I'm just saying, when I get those big scripts, I do feel kind of like overworked in the sense of, oh man, here's this thing I finally finished writing out. Now I get to start editing, you know. So at least if that's somewhat done, it could be like 30% of it gets put up as separate stuff. If at least parts of that are finished, I'll be fine with it. Oh man. Don't worry, Jim. We'll be covering your favorite GOP girl as she launches her bid. You'll be getting the video about her every like 2 days now. Dude, I'm not even joking. I have a higher chance of getting 100,000 subs or 1,000,000 subs than she has of winning that primary. I mean, I don't know what you have to really have some ego to think you're going to enter a race at 1% and just like topple the other person. So she'll definitely be getting more and more content with her name in the title. I had like 4 random people yesterday comment on stuff. I was like, where are they coming from? Making characters play differently, but then it edges towards players choosing the same characters that are considered good. I think it's just the way how it is. Well, that's why I said the concept sounds nice, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Because if you make characters that are so imbalanced to where the active gamer base chooses to ignore a majority of the roster to play as the same 2, 3, 4 characters over and over, then you have a problem. I can't tell you how many times I've watched online matches and it's got those same 4 or 5 characters in every match. I'm not saying they're all in the match at the same time. I'm saying that like if you'd be hard pressed to not find a match where it's one of those same ones not in one of the 2 teams of 3. So to me, it just doesn't seem like it has a point. It's just there. It's like, hey, let's make this game and try to sound like we actually care about uh the people that buy it, except we really don't, because we're gonna sit here and not actually make the characters worth playing as because they're barely Most of them are barely even playable to begin with. But secondly, we're going to make some that are so much better than others that you have no reason to play as the. It's sloppy. And remember, a lot of these characters don't even play that good, or the ones that play really good, you have to pay more money on. So I just, it's tacky. The whole thing is just tacky to me. I'm tired of DLC. I'm tired of all these microtransactions. Just it's obnoxious. You want to play Xenoverse 2? Give me $60. You want to play Xenoverse 2 with all the DLC? Give me $200. Like, it's stupid. Your comments are delayed. Oh, I'm sorry. Such a shame. And oh, that's stupid. Locking good characters behind the paywall. With fighters, they locked everybody behind a paywall. Like half that game. I swear, I've never seen a game where you have to buy the base game and half of its roster separately. I've never seen that before. That's really insane. Oh man. Hey Jem, I'm gonna make this game and it's gonna have 7 playable characters, and it's gonna be $60. Don't worry, you can get the other 7 playable characters to total up to 14 for another $60. So just give me 120. So I said the gaming community used to be fun. It used to be about enjoying games and having a good time with people. Now it's just a bunch of sleazy companies looking for ways to get more and more money out of people that already bought their crap because they purposely put out unfinished games. And people who come online and just defend this practice. Oh, well, they had to release a game this year or else the license will run out. Oh, well, they didn't have enough time. Yeah. Some of these games, they come out and within a few days or a few weeks, DLC 1 arriving in a month. Like, so you knew what you were doing. You knew you were putting out a game that was not finished, which is why you have this extra content that's basically done to try and charge me more for. I mean, like this is so obvious that even a blind person could see it. It's sad. Like I said, look at Final Fantasy VII. This game came out over 20 years ago. They make a remake of it. You buy the remake, it's not the full game. They're talking about a series of remakes. So this game that probably was like $30 at most when it came out over 20 years ago. Now you get to play the same game, but at $180 if you buy all 3 parts. The microtransaction era stays strong. They're gonna squeeze every nickel and penny out of you they can. God, I just man. Playing games can be very irritating. Being a fan of games is just very irritating. Hey, Jem, you keep laughing. I'm gonna say you're bullying me. I'm gonna say the same thing that stupid relative said, talking about you're bullying me when they were arguing with the spin artist. But then, and this is how stupid they are. They have friends they can go over the house of, so they don't have to see this person if they don't want to. They're talking to them over the phone, so they can hang up with them on them rather if they don't want to talk to them anymore. So it's kind of self-inflicted. Like you're choosing to speak to this person that you are not having a good conversation with, and you're accusing of bullying you, but you're not walking away even though you have 900 ways to avoid being around them. That's why the whole thing is funny to me. You're bullying me. It's such a drag as well because I really like Final Fantasy. I don't like the direction a lot of this stuff is going. I guess that's the burden of being a fan of some of this stuff. It is expensive. I mean, I've never really been into it that much. I played was it 13? Whichever one has the girl with the pink hair. I played that one when I was a kid. Um and outside like I never had a problem with them. I just never was really into them that much, but it's like you take the one that people like the most, the seventh one, and you do this remake that you purposely cut into three pieces. So now people can pay triple the price of what it would have been to just buy one full game that remade the thing. That's why I said it's just tacky. These companies think they're really slick. They're gonna keep on doing their microtransactions. So I hope that Megumi is having fun in the DLC era because I'm not. Glad I just got it for free from a PS subscription. You know, I have a couple of shortcuts myself, like on Steam. They'll put a lot of stuff on it. I think I mentioned I got Kakarot for like $14. They had this big sale where that thing was like 75% off. But what I'm getting at is they want like like just any given day, they want you to pay $60 for the base game. They want you to pay I don't how much is the DLC altogether is like at minimum like $20. And again, it's the microtransactions. They keep there, even if you get the game for a good price, the amount you spend to get the DLC for it is going to make it basically it's gonna like not matter what you saved because you'll be it's a nice scam. It really is. You think the DLC should be free? They should just give this to you. It's like, well, not really. I think if you're gonna put out a game and then stick 5 or 6, like I said, this wasn't a thing back in you look at the early 2000s, the 90s, any of these prior eras of games. A game came out, that was it. You bought the game, you didn't like it, return it. But now they just put a bunch of crap on a disc somewhere and they wait for the game to be out for a few weeks. Oh, new DLC, come buy this for $20. Hey, remember Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3? Absolutely ludicrous. That is a huge damn scam. Remember remember when Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out, and then like 6 months later they put out Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Like, oh, don't worry, if you bought the first one, you can return the one you had before and get a little discount. Like, so, but you're making me pay twice for the same game with like what, 10 more characters, 12 more characters? Like, what? But see, that's how you know Capcom are some sneaky bastards, because if they were smart, actually no, if they cared about the people who bought their games, they would go, all right, you know what? We're gonna just we have these 12 characters or 10 that we have made, but they're not ready for release date. So we're gonna delay the game by a few months and we're gonna stick them in there and you can buy the game with them in there. Instead of, hey, let's put out this game with minus 12 or 10 characters, then put a new version of it out with 10 more and have it to where you can get a little cheap, tiny 20% discount if you bought the version before. Oh my God. Some scammers, man. That was really my first experience with like the duplicity of these companies, Because guess what? Marvel vs. Capcom 2 came out. There was no DLC. There was the finished game that everybody liked, and that was it. They put everything behind a paywall or some hidden updates. I'm tired of it. So they can have their stupid game. Well, anyway, I'm gonna get off of here because I gotta run some errands. I gotta go to the market and pick up some stuff because for some reason I'm no like going to the market is a superpower. People just will never go. Um, but I hope you enjoyed the stream, Megumi, Jem. It was nice to see you after so long. Akatsuki Merchant, and I will be back on Monday, hopefully in a non-car setting, a non-vehicular setting, but we'll see. So, thanks for showing up, and have a good rest of your weekend.